Have you ever thought about self-publishing a novel, but you weren't quite sure where to start? A friend of mine is looking at self-publishing this year, and a couple weeks ago we were talking about the places she was looking at publishing through. Of course, I was thinking of the common places like Drafted Digital, Amazon, Ingram Spark, and so on. However, she began to mention a place that I hadn't heard of before. What started to catch my attention was that it basically had a subscription service. You would pay up front for a year or so, and this was something I'd never heard of before in indie publishing. Ever. So I started asking questions because, after all, a subscription service to a company that would host your books and provide other resources and so on could work. For example, I started asking her, are they gonna do marketing for you? Because a lot of indie authors really do struggle with marketing. Unlike with TradPub, where they do sometimes do some marketing for you, how much they actually do tends to vary. But the point is that if they were providing services that justified the price of this subscription, I was like, okay, like maybe I could see this being a thing, but basically no. That was not the case. The biggest selling point that she shared with me was that they said that she would get 100% of the royalties of the book sales. And so instead of them getting some of the royalties, she would get all of them. And by the way, I'm not mentioning any names of any places because you'll find out why. So my counter to her saying, oh, I would get all the royalties, was that the appeal of indie publishing for me was always the royalties, because unlike with trad publishing, where let's say you're going to get an average of 10% royalties per book, and that's after breaking even on the advance. So let's say you had a $9,000 advance whenever you first sold your book to that publishing company. You would get nothing until the book sales had earned back that $9,000. And if you never broke even, if your book never broke even, if it was not that big of a seller, you would see nothing else. That $9,000 is all that you get. So I think that she hadn't had a chance to research the kind of royalties you would get through other indie publishing places. And in other indie publishing websites, you would get, I'm just going to say 50% or higher, usually around 70% or more, especially for ebooks. I think that's changing a little bit here and there, but obviously 50% or higher is so much better than 10%. So yeah, I was like, listen, you're already going to get pretty good royalties. Is it really worth paying $100 or more a year, let's say, for a subscription just to earn an extra like 20% or so? And so as we were talking about this, I was like looking at the website, and the marketing was iffy. This is not word for word because, again, I don't want to be calling out any particular place, but basically, they were like, authors will receive 100% of their sales, like my friend said, but that was after printing and shipping charges. They were also like, oh, also our authors are receiving 50% royalties, which is more than like the industry standard. It's so much more. And I'm like, well, what about indie publishing industry standards? Are you comparing this to trad publishing? Like, that's not a very fair comparison, since these people aren't getting advances from you. They're paying you instead of you paying them. They also listed things that were free for other places like Amazon as part of like the paid experience. Like, you get everything you need. You can publish and sell your paperback books. Yeah, Amazon can do that. You can also have 1 billion books in just your one bookstore, your author page. And I'm like, yeah, Amazon does that for free. You also don't have to like make your own book cover. We have a book cover maker. And I'm like, yeah, it's crappy, but Amazon does have a book cover maker. It was all highly suspect. So yeah, my friend and I, we kept looking around. I looked at Instagram and Reddit. And I found very little on Reddit, which is just so weird. People on Reddit just talk about anything and everything like all the time. So it was so strange that I found maybe 1 or 2 threads that were very small and very new about this place. And then like their Instagram was oddly sparse. And I also searched on YouTube. YouTube is great. There's so much stuff from readers and from authors on YouTube. There's the whole AuthorTube stuff. And it was just so weird on YouTube that there were almost no videos for this one suspicious self-publishing subscription place that my friend and I discussed. I found very little on YouTube, except for like there was this one author who was very artificially hyping up the place, or maybe that was an Instagram reel. Either way, it was weird. Like, no author is going to have only positive things to say about any indie publishing platform. All of them have downsides, even if they're like really small. There are some that I've had great experiences with so far, but even with them, I'm like, yeah, this was a little weird, or that was a little counterintuitive, or whatever. You wouldn't neglect to say that, because people like to hear you talk negatively on YouTube videos. That sounds really mean. You know what I mean. I mean, look, you clicked on this. You know what I'm talking about. So the reason I'm not going to name any names is because these places are scams. But I don't want them coming after me. However, I'm going to walk you through how to tell if a place is a scam so you can just figure it out for yourself. Okay, so the first thing is that they require money up front or a subscription. That is not done. It's just not done in indie publishing. Like, Ingram Spark is probably the most like infamous and contentious indie publishing resource, but even they, to the best of my knowledge, do not charge you anything up front. And then the second thing is that you find like promos and people talking about it, but they're like really incredibly positive. That is very strange. My friend also found that one of the places that she was looking at had no prior history before like this year, which is like really weird. Indie publishing has been around for a long time. Like they should have something. Also, you know, look at YouTube and Reddit. As I mentioned, if no one is talking about these places, that's just very strange. And then also, of course, if they list things that are free elsewhere, like they're fancy, exclusive, amazing things. And obviously, if you're a new author who hasn't published before, you wouldn't know any better. You wouldn't know that these things are totally free in so many other places, and that makes it feel even more scammy. They're taking advantage of inexperienced indie authors, and I hate that very much. I think it's a terrible, terrible thing to do. So then places that are not a scam, they're not going to have any upfront costs. They're free. You can look at all the stuff, do all the things, publish books, whatever, without having to pay anything. They'll just take out royalties. Also, they should have a history. Indie publishing for ebooks online has been going on since like, I don't know, 2010 or something. Like, it's not new. It's not new. They should have a history. And many authors should be talking about it. They should talk about the pros and the cons, or maybe even just the cons. You will find so much about Ingram Spark. I'm not trying to like dunk on Ingram Spark. Like I said, I think I mentioned that I hadn't used them, so I don't know. I just know that there's a lot to learn about them. If you're interested, look them up. You're gonna learn so much. You're gonna find out so much about them. And yeah, just definitely follow your dreams, but please be careful. Do not give places your money up front like this. It's just weird. Maybe in the future there will be some kind of indie publishing service where they do cover like a lot of different marketing things for you. That I think that actually that would be kind of amazing. There are different ways that like you can make ads, and I'm sure there are people you can pay to like make copy for you for ads and stuff like that. It would be pretty darn cool for there to be a company that did a lot of this stuff for indie authors. I actually think maybe there is something like that. I don't know. I don't have the money to pay for something like that. But so like that would be cool. I don't know if it's out there. So just be careful. Even if you see something like that, just look it up. There should be information and discussion about it. And I guess also just remember that if you've finished a book or you're getting ready to finish a novel, the fact that you've already or are about to complete a novel to begin with is in and of itself is amazing. When my friend who I was talking about this with, whenever she was going through some really rough editing after she finished her draft, just kept reminding her that the fact that she had an actual finished novel that she wrote with her human hands, typing on the keyboard, or her voice transcribing the words, like being able to finish it, that in and of itself is amazing. I firmly believe anyone can write a novel, but not everybody actually accomplishes the goal of finishing a novel. And if you do, that is awesome. You should be proud of yourself, and you deserve to independently publish it if that is what you wish, without falling prey to scammers. Have you seen anything interesting or strange or suspicious in the realm of indie publishing? Any places you want to warn us about? Comment down below with your thoughts, and I will see y'all in another video. Bye!